In this video, we're going to take the images that we masked and we are going to composite them onto this table. And we're going to go in and do some touch-ups to make it look more realistic. So if you wanted to composite everything on a white background, that would be okay. Or if you want to put it in an environment, you can do it a lot of different ways depending on how you want to style your photos. All right, so here I'm going to select this layer and I'm going to tell this layer, I'm going to say duplicate layer, and I'm going to tell it to go to where my background layer is. All right, so I've got my little floating cup here, and I'm going to go ahead, and one thing you want to think about too is scale, like how big these things would actually be in real life. And I'm going to scale it down. So let's pretend that this is a coffee cup with a logo on it, right? Scale it down there. Set it here. And we'll give some depth to these things too once we get everything else in. Okay, and I'm gonna do the same thing with my bag. I'm going to say duplicate layer. And so even if you were just compositing these on a solid color background or what have you, it's the same process. Right, go here. All right, and then there's my coffee bag. So this is our custom logo, and this is my coffee bag here. So I'm going to show you how to kind of tweak the color balance on these guys as well. All right, so I'm going to say this is going to be kind of here. Actually, I'm going to move this. I'm going to have this be over here. And I'm going to make this a little bit larger. Okay, I'll have this set about right here. And then drag, whoops, wrong layer. I drag my, shoot, there. I'm going to move my coffee cup over. Yeah. Drag it. So I'm going to say maybe my coffee cup is kind of, you don't really want to cover, if you're trying to showcase the packaging, you don't want to cover up the packaging. Kind of move this. And I'm going to grab both of these and scale them up just a little bit. Scale them up just a little bit more. And again, so in relation, this coffee bag would be bigger than this coffee cup. So that looks cool. All right, so obviously my coffee cup is way wider than my coffee bag. So I'm going to go to my coffee bag and I'm going to create, let's see, I'm trying to think, I'm going to go to click this in particular, and I'm going to go to image adjustments, and then I'm going to go to brightness and contrast, and you can brighten it up a little bit, bump the shadows. And again, the advantage that you guys have is that your products will be taken all in the same lighting, so it won't be that much of an issue. So there we go. And I'm going to do the same thing to the coffee cup, but I'm actually going to take, well, I did auto contrast on the coffee cup, but I don't like the way that looks. So I'm going to go back to brightness and contrast, take the brightness down, and the coffee cup. And you can get super fancy, like painting in light and shadows if you want. Well, it's totally up to you. Okay. All right, so that looks pretty good. One thing that I am going to do is kind of go in and touch up some of those areas in this coffee cup mask here. Again, I'm going to turn on my black paint brush, and I'm going to go in and remove. I'm going to zoom in a lot and remove these imperfect areas. And we just kind of did a very quick selection and very quick mask here, but this will, especially if you zoom in, that will allow you to really get in there and get the parts that you need. One thing that I am going to do, so rather than putting a drop shadow actually on these, because that's going to be where the fakeness comes in, I'm actually going to paint. So kind of got a little kind of bumpy coffee mug, but you guys can smooth that out when you're making your selections. But I'm actually going to create a new layer, and put this under both of my products. And I'm going to go in and paint in some shadows under both of these. So to paint in those shadows, I'm going to get a brush, and there's a ton of like shadow painting techniques, but this is one of the easiest and best ways. You want to get kind of a soft brush. Make sure that you don't have your hardness set, because you kind of want that fuzz on the end of your brush. I'm going to go to multiply, and if you've got something where it can respond to pressure sensitivity, like a stylus, you can actually use that too to help paint in some shadows. I'm going to go to, well, I've got my brush set to multiply, but that will actually pick up, the multiply will pick up the material under it. But I'm going to set the opacity down, and you might not even actually click a black. You might actually want something a little lighter. I'm going to turn that down even more. And so the multiply is actually allowing that, yeah, see how that looks a little bit more natural. The multiply is actually allowing this to pick up the material, so it's not going to be just a solid black. And you want to just kind of layer it in. So do one, lift your brush, because if you do it in one fell swoop, if you have to make any changes, you'll have to do it all over again. So you want to do little swoops, and you guys see how that is slowly adding some shadows. And this is something that you could go in again and retouch as well. But this actually just makes it, and because that brush is softer, this actually makes it look a little more like it's actually sitting in the space on the table. Paint where the stuff, and kind of use your art training of like how how light hits things, and use that to help you make your shadows as well. So again, the more you layer this, the deeper the shadows will get. But if we zoom out, that actually looks really nice. It doesn't look like it's floating on the table anymore. It looks a little bit more grounded. So that is how to composite images. And in the next video, we'll talk about some retouching.